What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the opening pair, our very first show for 2021. And what a way to come back. The Oscars are only around the corner. And myself and the great, the wonderful, the stylish Kyle Gavin is here with me to help break down one of the top contenders for this year's Oscars, The Trial of the Chicago 7. Mr. Gavin, please take us away.
Wow, what an introduction. A little bit speechless after that. But no, it's great to be back. A little bit of a hiatus on our behalf, but we'll kick off 2021 with, as you say, a superb film. Can't wait to get stuck in here and unpack all the details.
So it came out last year, kind of tail end of 2020, but obviously it's more kind of in focus now that the Oscars are only about 2 weeks away. I think I checked earlier on what they were. It's written and directed by Aaron Sorkin, and I suppose kind of if we kind of break into how we kind of break down our movies, in terms of like kind of the Barstool overview that I would have for this is it's classic Aaron Sorkin. He's really kind of quick dialogue. He keeps up with the pace. For those who don't know, he wrote The Social Network, he wrote Moneyball, and he also wrote The West Wing on TV, which went for 6 or 7 seasons. So like he's got a fantastic kind of background in terms of how he like writes characters, how he develops characters. So in terms of my Barstool overview, kind of coming out of finishing this movie, that's kind of where I landed. But in terms of how did you feel after this movie ended, Kyle?
Yeah, you've really kind of deep dived there into the details and directors and stuff. Yeah, I'm kind of coming at it more from a casual, sit down, watch a movie for the evening type review. But for me, really reviewing it in the last day or so, to me, just the overall takeaway was just the power of the human spirit to overcome just injustice and the powers that be just completely being against you. As you say, it's a very topical thing at the moment with the different movements around the world. And, I just found it very eye-opening.
It resonates on so many different levels from so many different kind of ethnic groups. And, there's things that happen in this movie that kind of, if they happened this year or last year, you would say, yeah, that's probably fair that happens in the world still, unfortunately. But maybe let's not get into a political debate. Maybe let's just park that to the side. But no, it's really good. I think it's a really strong kind of way of thinking coming out of this movie. So if we go into kind of like our adrenaline occasion, kind of these are our favorite scenes of this movie. I'm just going to kick off with a couple of mine. I think for a movie that is such heavy in terms of what it's about, I think that there's so many moments of levity and like humor in it, which I think is really cool. There's the scene where obviously the trial is about to start and Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin are walking through the court to go and take their seats. Someone throws an egg at them and it's just like, you don't know what to do with the egg now, do you? No, have the clue. Like that's a really good like funny moment before like what's about to come. I think that the end of the movie is really, really powerful when Tom Hayden, played by Eddie Redmayne, starts like naming all of the people who've died in the Vietnam War. And I think like the big scene for me has to be when they all make a pact almost to not stand for the judge after what's happened to Bobby Seale, and Hayden, without realizing, does. And just the kind of, there's a slight knock-on effect for the couple of scenes after that. But they're kind of just a couple I pulled out. But from your own opinion, what was your kind of favorite scenes within this movie?
Yeah, as you said, you touched on it. It's a very heavy subject, but the thing I loved about it was it's taken in a lot of scenes a light-hearted approach. There's quite a few laugh out loud moments I found.
Yeah.
But for me, the scene that caught my attention is it's near the end where they're debating who's going to speak on behalf of the 7 guys on trial, and it's Abby and Tom, who throughout the movie are not quite at each other's throats, but there's something there that they just don't see eye to eye. They come from very different backgrounds and what have you. But Abby, played by Sacha Baron Cohen, begins to speak about what inspired him to join this movement, and he speaks about seeing Tom in his element during a rally, and how he's inspired him, and how he really does respect everything that he has done. And I suppose it gets to that point where you see that moment of, okay, yeah, This is why everyone is here. This is why Abby and Tom and all these guys are together, although they have different characters and different characteristics, I guess. That goal at the end of the day is they all want what is best. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, definitely.
it really just it sold it all together for me, and I just found it very, very powerful.
Yeah, the relation between Abby and Tom throughout the movie is so it really does. Two guys on different kind of sides of the road, but they're obviously fighting for the same thing. So it's always interesting when you bring a group of people together from different walks of life that have that common goal, like how they all kind of interact with one another. My favorite quote is actually, it's also an Abby quote. It's from a bit kind of at the start of the movie. It's after their first part. It's after, I think, their first day in court, and they're in a room together, and I know Tom and Abby are having a kind of like a back and forth, and it's about like, what do you want to happen from this, and like the war to be over and this, that, and the other. And Abby turns around and he goes, I don't have time for cultural revolution. It distracts from actual revolution. And that just went like had to pause it there and then. I needed to just take a moment for myself. It's just such a powerful line, but it's so like calmly spoken. But I just think like the relationship between Abby and Tom really kind of just drives this movie.
Absolutely.
But they're both solid quotes, I think, but we could pick hundreds of them.
Yeah, it's one of those movies. It's just, as you say, recite or recall, whatever you want to put the label on it. There's a lot of that in it. For me, again, it's an Abby quote, and it's when he's on the stand and he's being questioned by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And basically, he just says, "Give me a moment, would you, friend? I've never been on trial for my thoughts before." Yeah. And I just thought it's just so clever, It's just,
and it's so softly spoken as well. There's no aggression behind it. There's been some people that have been on trial and been up in the box, and they've been aggressive back to both Mark Rylance and to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but he just says it so calmly and so like peacefully, because that's what all of this was meant to be, a peaceful thing that happened, the demonstrations, and I think that really encapsulates it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. As you said, a lot of the characters in the movie have lost their cool whilst being on the stand, and just how he delivers it. It's classic Sacha Baron Cohen. He slips into a role just so easily. Just for me, he steals the show most of the way through. But just that line just is like, wow, I love that.
Yeah, it's really good. I suppose then if we move on to like who I relate to in terms of favorite character, Sacha Baron Cohen's character, Abby Hoffman, is my favorite character from this movie. And it was actually really weird. I was watching the 2 hour 15, whatever the runtime was, and it was actually only when the credits came and I seen Sacha Baron Cohen was who played it. I was like, how did I not know that or cop that? Like, am I a tick, or what's the story here?
No,
maybe I am. But he added like, there was like a lovely balance of like comedic moments with serious moments. And then if I also could, I have a special mention, I think, for Mark Rylance as their defense counsel. I think he was so strong. There's a lot of moments with him and the judge, then they are going back and forth, and they're neither is missing a beat and neither is giving anything up. And I think that Mark Rylance was really, really strong in this movie also. But for yourself, who's your favorite character?
Yeah, well, just actually jumping off your point there, a special mention for me has to go to Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think you can see the torn emotion in him, although he's a job to do. He portrays that character that, I don't agree with it, but what can I do? So I just wanted to shout him out. But for me, it's Jerry Rubin. It's just, like I
probably still holding on to that egg.
Obviously Sacha Baron Cohen steals the show, and I think everyone will, the vast majority of people will fall in love with him. But just for me, he's the pluck. Jerry Rubin, he's the plucky sidekick. He obviously wants what's best for everybody, and he's happy-go-lucky. And we spoke off air, and for me, I just really can relate to, he falls in love with what turns out to be the undercover agent. And look, We've all been there. We've all fallen for the pretty face and follow that person blindly. And I just got great. I got great fun out of him, and for such a heavy subject, he brings great light to the film. So it was him for me.
There's a few scenes I can remember at the top of my head. There's the one when the girl is getting attacked in the park, and he's the one that breaks it up. I know when they're marching, he's the one that's trying to kind of keep everybody in check and make sure that it doesn't turn into like a full-scale riot, because it is meant to be a peaceful protest, not process. But I suppose it was a process to get the protest. But he's a solid call, definitely. And the two guys work so well together as a duo. Like that's the thing that goes really well with them. So there's probably no reason why we wouldn't pick the two of them. But there's strong performances throughout. There's Rylance, there's Joseph Gordon-Levitt, especially him at the end when the names are being read out and he stands and the Attorney General goes, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm standing as a mark of respect." Moments like that, like that's what you get from Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And obviously Tom Hayden, played by Eddie Redmayne, very, very strong again. So there's a lot of really, really good performances in this. And I think let's get into the rating. See this out with the rating. My rating, I know you don't like decimal points, but I'm gonna go 8.5 on this one. I think the strong roles we've alluded to. Characters really, really developed. It's a real Sorkin thing. He really kind of adds these layers of character in. I like the chopping of actual footage from back in the day with what was recreated, especially in that scene in the park that I alluded to in the previous segment. And then just Sorkin's writing in general is always on point. He very rarely writes anything that you would say is trash, which is why he's been so successful. So 8.5 for me. What about yourself?
Yeah, I was a little torn. It was parts that for me, there was times when they flashed back and forth between the different stories, and there's so much going on that at times I found it a little bit tricky to keep up with everything that was going on. It's not a film that you can be typing on a message on your phone and then looking up, and you know what I mean. So you've got to be fully tuned in. I gave it an 8, just for that reason, that at times it's a little bit tricky to keep up with the story because there's just so much going on. But the biggest, I suppose, takeaway or overviewing marker I had from it was, for it to be such a heavy subject and an important subject, it's enjoyable. You could watch it with a lot of different people. You know, it's not a film to shy away from. So for me, I gave it an 8, but it genuinely is something that I would really highly recommend. Sit down, watch it, learn from it, but also there's enough light points that you can actually enjoy it as well.
Definitely. I think if I had to say now, I would say if it's going to win any of the Oscars, I would say probably screenplay would be the one I would kind of pencil it down to, based on kind of like the snappy dialogue and that. But no, I definitely take everything that you're saying on point. And I would be interested in kind of reviewing this movie 6 months down the line and see had my opinions of any of the characters changed, or if anybody else kind of came out, because I know there's so many strong performances, whether they're like small scale or they're like main cast. Like Michael Keaton's in this movie, for 3 scenes, and he's really, really strong in this again.
Absolutely,
So there's a lot in it, but I think that's going to wrap up our first comeback episode of 2021. Hopefully not the last. I know we are partial to going on hiatus every now and again, but we are back. 2021 is going to be a big, big year for the opening pair, and I couldn't wish to spend every moment on screen with anyone else other than the great Kyle Gavin. So why don't you see us out, Mr. Gavin, with where you can find us all?
Yeah, absolutely. As you can see on screen, you'll find Keith at Keith Kilduff Media and myself at Kyle Gavin 23. Just to echo Keith's words, absolutely delighted to be back. We had a little bit of a hiatus, but we're back on track now, and a lot of really, really top content to come from us. And we hope you enjoy and join us and add into the show. But we're just really excited to be back.
Guys, once again, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and we will see you all on the next show. Take care.
Good evening.